Terrible as it is, there's a tune in our book. There's a song in our book, and the arrangement is very different. Every time I get up to lead it, I forget that, and I sing the arrangement I know, and it doesn't match anything on the screen. It's terrible. So if you want to turn over with me, we're going to grab a quick reading from Mark chapter 6, starting in verse 35. It's an event we're all familiar with, but I want to touch on it again really quickly. He says, "And when the day was far spent, his disciples came unto him and said, This is a desert place. Now the time is far past. Send them away, that they may go into the country round about and into the villages, and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat. He answered and said unto them, Give ye them to eat. And they said unto him, Shall we go and buy 200 pennyworth of bread, and give them to eat? He saith unto them, How many loaves have ye? Go and see. And when they knew, they say, 5 and 2 fishes. And he commanded them to make all sit down by companies upon the green grass. And they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by 50s. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, he looked up to heaven, and blessed, and brake the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fishes divided he among them, and they did all eat, and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments and of the fishes, and they did eat. And they that did eat of the loaves were about 5,000 men. Again, we're very familiar with this. It's the story about feeding the 5,000 men there. And by the language, it seems like we've got more than 5,000. It's just the 5,000 men that were taken into account there. Think about the women and the children that might have been with them. But the idea here is he's going there. We've just recently, we found that the apostles have returned from the limited commission. They have just found out that John has been beheaded. It's been a rough day. Things are a little rough. Jesus is, we're going to go. We got to get out of the way for a little bit. We're going to rest a little bit. Matter of fact, what we find is that instead of finding solitude and rest, this whole crowd of people comes out and follows them. And so he takes advantage and he teaches them. And, he keeps teaching them to the point where the day is far spent. Everybody's hungry. They're out kind of in a desert place, they call it. And you look at kind of the way they thought about the situation. And they said, the hour's late. It's a deserted place. People need to eat. They're going to need a place to sleep for the night. Luke mentions that. And their whole solution was send these people away so they can go take care of themselves and we can take care of ourselves. However, Jesus has this different solution. He basically says, just feed them. The problem is they're hungry. The solution is just feed them. And of course, they look at it and go, we don't have the money for that. We don't have the resources for that. He says, well, what do you have? And he says, well, we have a couple fish, a handful of loaves. Not a lot going on that we've got to give these people. And matter of fact, he says, but what are these? This is in John 6 and 9. He says, but what are these among so many? This little bit that we have, what is it among so many people? And you look at the way that they thought, and honestly, we have to look at ourselves and understand that we think the same way sometimes. Because I think we're all familiar with the event that what happens is Jesus takes control and he says, all right, everybody sit down. Organize this. Sit down in companies by hundreds and by 50s. It says now what we're going to do is we're going to give thanks for what we do have. It wasn't a lot. But we're going to give thanks for what we do have, and so Jesus gives thanks. He says he looks up to heaven, he blesses the food, and then he starts distributing the food. And by the way, it's written here, he blesses, he breaks it, and he gives it to the disciples, and the disciples are giving it out to the folks who are there waiting. And this indicates this idea that as he was tearing off a piece of bread, it just multiplied. There was more. It never ran out as he goes on through there. It just continues to grow. The quantity was getting larger and larger. I love how in the end of this, it's not as if a couple of these people kind of went, I sure wish I had some more. A little Oliver Twist. Some more, please. It didn't happen like that. It says there that they all ate and they were filled. None of them were the slightest bit hungry. They all ate and they were all filled. And John says as they ate, says they would eat as much as they would and they were filled. So it's not even if they kind of went, I'd love to have some more, but I think I've had enough. It was just they kept eating until they were full and they didn't want any more. And it's just amazing for this. Now, and then of course what we find is that Jesus goes about and he says, okay, take up the leftovers. Okay. I've watched my family tonight devour Chick-fil-A. I'm sure it was a little bit less than 2 fish and 5 loaves worth of Chick-fil-A. And the 5 of us ate, and I was still kind of picking at everybody's fries. And there were no leftovers. That's kind of how that works in our house. There aren't any leftovers. We put more food on the table, and there's nothing left. That's how that works. Here we have Jesus, who, he starts off with basically a plate full of food, feeds 5,000 people, plus everybody else that might have been with them, and then says, now go get the leftovers. I'm sorry, what? Leftovers? I love the fact that what happens when he collects the leftovers, it finds out that even John says they don't want anything to be lost, but what John says in the end of there is that they picked up more leftovers than they actually started with. That amazes me to think about that one. And what I want to look at is kind of the idea, it's not the fish, it's not the loaves, it's what they had. It's what they had. Jesus looked at them and said, what's the problem? The people are hungry. What are you going to do about that? Send them away. No, that's not what we do about that. We feed them. We do our job. We take care of the people. And if we switch this over to think about this less about fish and less about loaves and think about it more about the gospel, we look at a world around us and we go, ooh, people are hungry. What are we going to do about that? Call Neville. He'll go take care of it. Send them over to somebody else because I just can't do this. I just don't have the resources. I don't have the talent. I don't have the ability. I don't know what to say. I don't have that information. But Jesus sometimes says, well, what do you have? Just take care of the problem. Start with what you have and work the problem. Feed the people. Feed the world. Teach the world. That's what we've been given. You look at what was happening there in the very beginning when he tells them, go out into the world, teach them, make disciples of them, baptize them. And they went, yeah, with what? We don't have this information. But they did exactly that. They just, as they had it, they spread it, they taught it until it was all put together for us in lovely bonded leather-bound books. And so as we have this out there for us, we can see that the world is waiting for us. And we don't get to use the excuse, I just don't have that ability. I just don't have that talent. I just don't have that strength. I just don't have that wisdom. Because Jesus didn't say, go get all the wisdom, go get all the knowledge, go get all the strength, and go get everything you need, and then go teach. He simply said, go teach. And then he sends the comforter that we've been talking about out there in the lobby group, this comforter to give us that wisdom, to give us that knowledge, to give us that strength, to give us what we need in order to do that. And I love it is we put ourselves down so often, especially when it comes to our abilities. I don't know if we've just been trained to think we can do less than we actually can. But it seems as human beings that we downplay our abilities and think that I just can't do it. I could never do what you do. I could never stand up in front of 175 on average people on a Sunday morning and teach the gospel. It's just something I can't do it. I don't have that ability. I could never get up there, like Chris and Billy and Steve and lead singing in front of that same group of people. I just don't have the talent to do that. I don't have the ability. We make excuses for ourselves all the time. Says, I just don't have the temperament. I don't have the ability to teach someone or to teach a group of people. And yet what Jesus tells us is, feed them. Go do the job. Go do the job, because I promise you, as we even look at as what he would do physically here with fish and loaves, think about the things and how much more he can multiply our talents. How much more could he multiply our talents? I feel very comfortable up here speaking right now, and I didn't start that way. Woohoo, 14 years old. Hey, you want to do an invitation? No. Yeah, do it anyway. Okay, great. I get up there, and I was nervous. And I didn't do a very good job, I don't think. Hopefully I've gotten better. But I'm very comfortable with it now. And my, at least my self-perceived amount of talent at the job has increased by doing it. I wasn't confident. I may look perfectly confident up there leading singing on a Sunday morning in front of a large crowd. And I didn't start that way the first time I ever led a song. It sounded a lot like this. And there were no microphones at Covington for the song leader. And so I feel a little more confident, if you can tell. I may not need the microphone now if I speak loud enough. And it doesn't bother me, because this is something that I've grown into. Because even as we start with a small amount of talent in an area, the ability to maybe speak to one or two people, the ability to just simply sing in the shower, the ability to study and think on things within the Word, those small amounts of talent we have, they grow to the point that you can't contain it anymore. You'll have far more left over when you start handing this out to people than you ever started, than you started with. And that may just lead us to the idea of how much we learn when we work. We start with this information and we grow. The things that we send out to people grow. And there's no sense in looking at ourselves and saying, I'll never have that kind of thing. We simply have to ask for it. We simply have to ask for it. In Matthew chapter 7 and verse 7, he says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives. The one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, and to the one who knocks, it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone, or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? It's simply a matter of get out there with what you have. You need a little more? Ask for some more. Be thankful for the little we have, and it will multiply. Just as he did here with the food, the same thing happens with the word and the work that we go out in the world to do. So never be afraid to step up into the work. Okay, maybe start simple. Maybe start with a small group of people and work your way up. Peter didn't get that chance. He stood up in front of the city and preached. Hopefully one day we might get the same opportunity. Start preparing for it now. Get out there and start doing the work. He's given us the tools that we need, whether we recognize it or not. The talents that we have were given to us so that we could serve him, so that we could spread his word and be of use in his kingdom. And it would be a terrible waste of incredible talent that we all have to just let it die on the vine without ever using it. So let's take example from Jesus. Feed the people. Do the work. The resources will take care of themselves. The talent, the things that we need, the physical things we need, the resources will take care of themselves. We simply have to get out and do the work. And of course, that starts with becoming a child of God. That starts by joining ourselves through his Son, through his blood, to be cleansed so that we can be part of that family. If that's something that hasn't been done, that you haven't taken advantage of that opportunity, now is a perfect time. Water's ready, I promise. I could hear it earlier. We're ready. We're ready to receive. God is ready to receive. He is ready to add to the kingdom those who should be saved. And if we've done that and we've kind of let our talents lag by the side, if we've laid something down and decided we're just not going to do that, or whatever the case is that might be holding us back spiritually, now is the perfect opportunity to take advantage of the brothers and sisters who are around you who can do and to pray for you, help you with whatever you need in order to get things back right so that we can grow. We can be that family so that we can go out and we can, feed the people. Wouldn't you take advantage of that opportunity while we stand and sing?